is, excuse me, Dr. Midday Live, Talk Radio 790 KABC, 800-222-5222 is our number. And we're switching gears. We're going to talk about phone apps that can monitor our mood. Dr. Tiffany Sanders, psychologist. Dr. Sanders, thank you so much for joining me. Let's start.
Thank you for having me.
I wonder if we should start by talking about depression before we get into the app. Symptoms of depression and unipolar versus bipolar depression. How about that?
Yeah, absolutely. As you already know, Dr. Drew, individuals who are depressed, they feel fatigued, they feel worthless, impaired concentration, they have insomnia, they say they can't sleep, or they sleep too much, right? So that restlessness, that feeling of being slowed down, all these are symptoms that individuals are reporting, and so that impacts their daily life, that impacts them at work, at school. And so the study is actually a pretty innovative study. It's saying, well, some people are poor reporters of their mental health, right, especially teenagers and adolescents.
Right.
So this study is very innovative because it can look at some objective data to determine whether you're depressed or not.
So this is a phone app that determines how much time we're spending on the phone and how much time we're moving about.
Right, exactly. So when it says, what it does is it tracks how much you're moving about. And so individuals who typically are depressed, and I ask this of my clients all the time, what's your schedule like, what's your routine? Many of them will report, I stay in the bed all day, I don't get up, I don't do a lot of things. And so it's able to determine whether you're leaving the house, whether you're mobile, because it's tracking it through the GPS device. Now, the other side of it is it also tracks how often you're on your phone. So individuals who often are depressed, they might be feeling like avoiding things, avoiding their loved ones, avoiding conversations. So individuals on their phone may likely play games or, on Facebook or some other sort of social media to distract them from their depression. Again, providing this hard objective data that we as clinicians and psychologists and psychiatrists can use to help diagnose someone.
I'd heard they're also looking at some apps that will monitor the possibility of mania. So I would imagine that would be how much time are you talking on the phone, you would be more manic. And if you're moving about excessively and probably monitoring your sleep, if you're sleeping very little, that would all be signs of a bipolar depression.
Right. So bipolar depression, people are going up and down. They have the mania, they have the lows, so they have their highs and lows. And unipolar depression, individuals are typically just depressed. So if they have that component where they can look at and assess the mania, that's even better, because some people say, well, I feel bipolar. Well, how do you determine you're feeling bipolar? So this objective data would say, oh, were you up all night? Were you just never sleeping? Were you all busy on the go? So that's objective data for us that's very important versus just relying on people's self-report.
I want to sort of call out two points that come to mind for me as it pertains to depression, since we're on the topic. One is, and this is just for edification for the listeners, that how often back pain and headaches are a symptom of depression, and people don't think about that. They go to the doctor and get put on physical therapy and opiates, which is contrary to what should happen to them. So just because your back hurts, do not get on pain meds. Consider that part of a overarching, perhaps, mental health symptomatology, number one. And number two, I am gravely concerned about everyone with depressive symptoms being called unipolar depression. I see my colleagues do this all the time. People that are really, the generalists are not really trained to assess depression. They're really not. And we are the main prescribers of these SSRIs, and I can't tell you how often I see manias precipitated because the doctor didn't ask the simple question, is there bipolar illness in your family? Have you ever had manic symptoms? Those sorts of simple questions can help really prevent very serious problems.
Right, and a thorough clinical interview where you're asking about individuals' history, their family, on either side. Has anyone ever expressed depression? Giving them examples of what mania looks like, bipolar depression, versus just saying, okay, well, you're depressed. Well, okay, how long you been depressed? 6 months? Well, then I'm going to write you this prescription, right? Yeah. So it's very important that clinicians are getting so specific with their questions so we're accurately diagnosing individuals. And let me just quickly address the piece that you brought up with the symptomatic, somatic feelings.
Yeah.
Thank you. I hear all the time, I feel like I'm having a heart attack, and so they rush off to the hospital and they think they're dying and stuff. And I tell my clients all the time, you know what? Let's look at the symptoms that you're reporting. You're reporting backache, strains in your neck. Those are symptoms typically associated with individuals who are depressed. That Cymbalta commercial is very accurate. Depression hurts, medicine ball to help. People who are often depressed, they will feel achy, and that's why we need to be very specific at asking those questions.
Do not be afraid to be open to the possibility that your symptoms have a mental health origin. Yes, if you have chest pain, get a cardiac evaluation. But at which point the doctor says, you know what, I think it's an anxiety symptom, then get the anxiety assessed and treated. It may be part of a depression, maybe a panic disorder, it may be a sleep disturbance. For some reason, you're having overwhelming anxiety and panic. Get that proper. It's your brain, just like you thought it was your heart. No, it's your brain. Let's get that assessed. Hang on, Tiffany, if you could just for a minute. I have to take a quick break. Dr. Tiffany Sanders with me. We're talking about depression. We're talking about mental health, talking about apps that monitor it. It's Dr. Do Midday Live, Talk Radio 790 KBC, the top hour. Mike Cathwood gets in here. We have a guest who's going to take on Medicare on its 50th anniversary. I say Medicare is a good thing. I'm not sure he is as enthusiastic. 800-222-5222. We'll be right back. Speaking to Dr. Tiffany Sanders. Dr. Sanders, is there a website where people can find you?
Absolutely. They can visit me at www.drtiffanySanders.com. And
we were talking about depression, and I two things I want to discuss in the few minutes we have left. Yeah. One is people's reluctance to sort of how we ended that last conversation was people's reluctance to open themselves to the idea that their symptoms may not be coming from the organ that they're preoccupied with, that it may be coming from their brain, and why we have such resistance and the stigma still in this day. What's going on with us? Why can't we just go, oh, good, it's not my heart. Oh, I'm having a panic attack. Let me go deal with that.
Right. Dr. Drew, what I find in my clients is that, people don't want to admit they're weak, and they associate if they're saying they're depressed or anxious with weakness. So they try to mask it under other things like, oh, I'm just stressed out. Well, usually if you're stressed sometimes, and that stress can be very chronic and overwhelming and intense, that can contribute to depression and anxiety. So I find that and often in certain communities, you're not supposed to go see a doctor about that stuff. You're supposed to talk to your pastor or, the big mother in your church or someone like that. And so as a result, you don't go and get the proper treatment.
Are the churches referring back to proper, are they being more sophisticated at least at getting people to the right services?
You know what? Unfortunately, I've heard too many pastors tell their congregants, you know what? If you would just trust in the Lord, and you don't have to get any medication. And I scream at the TV like, why are you saying that? That is such a misinformation that you're putting out there, and it's preventing your congregants from getting some access to treatment.
And you're not necessarily a huge advocate of pharmacotherapy. In fact, I think you'd agree with me that the research shows that talk plus medication for people that have significant problems, that's the highest probability of a resolution and a positive outcome.
Absolutely. I tell my patients all the time, it works together in concert, but you can start with counseling, get comfortable with it, talking about your issues and things like that. And then if we feel like you need to go to that next level, then let me refer you to a trusted psychiatrist who can prescribe the right medication for you. But let's start off with at least counseling and addressing your issues.
Let me put a little bit of hang a lantern on that a little bit and say, and by the way, it's better if you go to a psychiatrist and not a general practitioner, because psychiatrists are experts in discerning what is the just right medication for you given your constellation of symptoms, number one. And number two, your talk therapist is going to work with you on this. I remember I did talk therapy for years and years and years. At one point, my therapist goes, I think you need a little something for your anxiety. I'm like, no. I was like, no. I felt defeated. And I thought, well, maybe I should. But I ended up not doing it. But it was, so we kind of worked out together. It's not like your talk therapist is going to go, you got to go in there. Well, unless it's serious, and then listen to that person.
Right. And your talk therapist is the one that's been monitoring you and helping you through this for the longest. So they are a good judge of whether you need to kind of go to the next level. And what I tell individuals is that don't be afraid. You go and see a cardiologist and you get medication for your heart, your blood pressure. Why not see someone for your brain? And they are properly trained. I understand you want to see your general practitioner, but their training only goes so far. Your OB-GYN only goes so far. Your pediatrician only goes so far.
And they can maintain the medication and they can monitor it, but they shouldn't typically be the ones that are making the determination on the medication. It's complicated. It really is.
It's very complicated. It's very sad, and it's difficult on our part because we have to educate our patients so they are very aware to make the best decisions for themselves.
And it's interesting, we kind of have to educate our peers too, to some extent. I worked I'm an internist, so I'm a guy that does the heart and the lungs and all that stuff, and I was actually going to be a cardiologist. I ended up running a medical service in a psychiatric hospital and then spending the next 25 years working there. And in the course of that, about 7 or 8 years in, I thought, oh my God, we don't, in internal medicine, we really don't get any real significant training on the complexities of these issues, and yet we're the ones doing all the prescribing. So I have great respect for what you, our mental health peers, do. So, Tiffany, I've got to say goodbye. I thank you so much for joining me. Hopefully have you back again soon. Again, the website?
www.drtiffanysanders.com.
Dr. D-R or spelled out doctor?
DrTiffanySanders.com.
You got it. See you soon.